Britain once moved on horse and hope, until Edwin Foden built a steam truck sturdy enough for the nation's hardest roads. From Sandbach in 1856, a single workshop grew into a legend, changing what heavy transport could be. But despite innovation that powered wars and industry for generations, even Foden's engineering brilliance could not outpace the tidal shift of global competition and consolidation. Why did Britain lose not just a brand, but a symbol of its industrial might? The full story begins with a transport crisis that demanded something extraordinary. By the middle of the 19th century, Britain's factories and mines were producing more coal, steel and goods than ever before. Railways could move bulk between cities, but the real challenge came at the ends of the line, moving heavy loads from pithead to canal, mill to port, farm to market. Horse-drawn wagons, once the backbone of local haulage, were now overwhelmed. A single dray could manage just a few tons, and even the strongest teams were slow, prone to injury and exhausted by rough cobbles and muddy lanes. As industrial output soared, the old ways simply could not keep up. Coal production alone topped 60 million tonnes a year by the 1850s, with steelworks and textile mills demanding a constant flow of raw materials and finished goods. In towns like Manchester, Sheffield and Liverpool, streets clogged with carts and horses, delays mounting with every shipment. The limits of muscle power were clear. A city's growth risked stalling, not for lack of ambition, but for want of wheels that could carry the load. Engineers and industrialists saw the warning signs. The country's economic might depended on a solution, something that could move greater weights, travel farther, and work day after day without rest. Steam power had already transformed factories and railways. Now the question was whether it could conquer the road as well. The need for a new kind of transport was urgent, and the search for answers was underway in workshops and foundries across Britain. Out of this national crisis, a new era of heavy transport was about to begin. In 1856, a young apprentice named Edwin Foden began his journey in the workshops of Elworth, a few miles from Sandbach. He walked in as a teenager, eager to master the new machines that were reshaping the countryside. By his early 20s, Foden had risen to foreman, then partner, and soon after owner. The foundry under his name, Edwin Foden and Sons, became a hive of invention, turning out stationary steam engines and threshing machines that won medals at the Royal Agricultural Show. But it was the challenge of heavy haulage that truly set Foden apart. By 1880, he was building steam traction engines robust enough to pull ploughs, drive sawmills and haul loads that would cripple a team of horses. The breakthrough came in 1887 with the compound traction engine. This design recycled exhaust steam to drive a second piston, squeezing more power and efficiency from every shovelful of coal and every bucket of water. It was a leap forward. Engines could now haul heavier loads over longer distances with less fuel and fewer breakdowns. Word spread quickly. Foden's engines became known for their strength and reliability, earning contracts across the North and Midlands. Farmers, mill owners and hauliers turned to Sandbach for machines that could be trusted on rough roads and in punishing conditions. The company's reputation grew with each successful trial and every satisfied customer. In 1901, Foden's steam wagon completed a grueling 257-mile War Office trial without a single mishap, taking home £250 and cementing the firm's status among Britain's engineering elite. By the turn of the century, Edwin Foden's name stood for practical innovation, machines that worked as hard as the men who built and drove them. The foundations were set for a company that would shape the future of British road transport. The end of the steam era at Foden was not a gentle winding down, but a wrenching break with the past. In 1931, as diesel engines began to prove their worth across Europe, Foden's board faced a stark choice: persist with steam and risk obsolescence, or bet everything on the new internal combustion technology. The decision landed squarely on the shoulders of Edwin Richard Foden, son of the founder and a master of steam engineering. He was ordered to design a diesel lorry around the Gardner 4L2 engine, an outside supplier from Manchester, whose engines were gaining a reputation for reliability and fuel economy. For a firm so steeped in self-reliance, this was a radical step. The first Foden diesel truck, the F1, rolled out in 1931, powered by that Gardner engine and fitted with a 4-speed gearbox. It could carry 6 tons and run all day without the fuss of water stops or the risk of boiler failure. The move was not without cost. Many in the old guard saw diesel as a betrayal of everything Foden stood for. The boardroom became a battleground, with Edwin Richard caught between his technical instincts and the stubborn loyalty to steam that ran through the company. The real power, though, lay with his stepmother Mary Cook, who controlled most of the company shares after marrying into the family in 1929. By 1932, she forced Edwin Richard out, and with him went a core of talented engineers and loyalists. Unable to shape the future at Foden, Edwin Richard's son Dennis, along with cousin Edwin Twemlow and engineer Ernest Sherratt, set up a rival just down the road, ERF Limited. They took with them not just know-how, but the restless energy of a new generation. The split meant that Sandbach, once united under the Foden name, now played host to 2 fiercely competitive truck makers. Foden pressed ahead with diesel, building heavier 6-wheelers and 8-wheelers, while ERF staked its future on innovation and agility. The family rift, born of a single engineering decision, would define British truck making for decades. The Foden badge survived, but at the price of unity, and with the knowledge that survival in this new era would demand hard choices, not just technical skill. The outbreak of the First World War brought a sudden, urgent demand for vehicles that could withstand the rigours of military service. Foden's steam wagons and traction engines, already respected on Britain's roads, were pressed into action by the War Office. In the mud of Flanders and the supply depots of the Western Front, Foden's machines hauled ammunition, food and equipment where horses and lighter lorries would falter. The company's reputation for reliability was forged in these years, as procurement officers and army engineers came to depend on vehicles that could keep moving under shell fire and over churned ground. Wartime contracts pushed the Sandbach works to new heights of output. The workforce swelled, with skilled fitters and boilermakers working long shifts to meet the military's relentless schedules. Steam lorries left the factory gates in growing numbers, each one a testament to the company's ability to scale up production without sacrificing the quality that set Foden apart. When the guns fell silent in 1918, the lessons of war shaped Foden's ambitions for peacetime. The years that followed saw the company expand its civil range, building on the technical foundations laid in the trenches. By the mid-1930s, Foden was producing a new generation of multi-axle diesel trucks, 6-wheelers and 8-wheelers designed for the heaviest loads on Britain's roads. These models, built around the proven Gardner diesel engines, offered operators a blend of power and efficiency that was rare in the market. The move to diesel was not just a technical evolution, it was a statement of intent. Foden was no longer content to follow the industry. It aimed to lead, offering vehicles that met the changing needs of haulage firms, construction contractors and municipal fleets. The Sandbach factory became a hive of innovation and output, with engineers refining chassis designs and fitters assembling trucks destined for every corner of the country. The company's willingness to invest in new technology and its ability to deliver on large-scale contracts set the stage for Foden's emergence as a major supplier in the decades ahead. The groundwork was laid for the technical advances and military partnerships that would define the company's role in the Second World War and beyond. The Second World War put Foden's engineering to the ultimate test. The DG series, built for the British Army, became a familiar sight in convoys across Europe and North Africa. These military chassis were designed with field repairs in mind, with bolted cross members, accessible wiring and standardized fittings that made it possible for mechanics to patch up damaged trucks with basic tools, even under enemy fire. In the chaos of wartime logistics, reliability was not a luxury. It was the difference between supplies reaching the front and columns grinding to a halt. Foden's wartime trucks earned a reputation for strength and simplicity, their heavy frames shrugging off rough roads and their diesel engines running on poor quality fuel when nothing else would do. When peace returned, the lessons learned on the battlefield shaped Foden's ambitions for the future. Engineers who had cut their teeth designing for war, men like George Faulkner and Frank Whitaker, now turned their attention to the needs of civilian hauliers. The company's post-war push was defined by a single aim: to build trucks as tough as those that had survived the war, but with new levels of power and efficiency. The result arrived in 1948 when Foden unveiled its own in-house engine, a 4.1-litre two-stroke diesel, supercharged by scavenging, producing 126 horsepower. This was a bold break from reliance on outside suppliers. The two-stroke design was compact, delivering high torque from low revs and offering a crucial advantage for heavy loads on Britain's hills and motorways. The new engine was not just about raw power. It was engineered for easy servicing with modular components and wide access points that made life easier for fleet mechanics. Operators found they could keep trucks on the road with fewer stoppages and less specialist equipment, a direct inheritance from the field repair ethos of wartime. Foden's commitment to in-house engineering gave the company a technical momentum that carried it through the austerity years, setting the stage for a golden era of British truck building. The drive for innovation was not just a matter of pride, it was a practical response to the changing demands of post-war Britain, and a testament to the ingenuity of the design teams who led the charge. By the early 1960s, Foden's approach to truck design had set it apart from the rest of the British industry. The launch of the tilting fiberglass cab in 1962 was more than a technical upgrade, it was a statement of intent. While rivals clung to heavy steel and awkward access, Foden's new cab, built from reinforced plastic, weighed less, resisted corrosion, and could be tipped forward by a single driver in minutes. No more scraped knuckles or hours lost in laybys. Mechanics could reach every inch of the engine without dismantling half the truck. For a haulier, that meant less downtime, lower costs, and a vehicle that felt built around the needs of the person behind the wheel. Foden's engineers did not stop at one breakthrough. Over the decades, they produced an astonishing 48 different cab variants, more than any other British manufacturer. Each was tailored to the changing regulations, new engine options, and above all, the wishes of their customers. Owner drivers in particular found themselves at the centre of the design process. If a driver wanted a sleeper cab for overnight runs to the docks or extra soundproofing for long motorway hauls, Foden would build it. Even the badge on the grille could be ordered in polished brass if the customer fancied a bit of old-school flair. Drivers were at the heart of the work. This culture of customization bred fierce loyalty. Drivers spoke of Fodens as if they were part of the family, machines that earned their keep mile after mile, year after year. Testimonials from the era tell of trucks racking up 500,000 miles with only routine servicing, of cabs that stayed dry and warm through the worst British winters. For many, the Foden badge was a mark of pride, a sign that the operator cared about quality and comfort as much as the bottom line. While the rest of the market moved toward mass production and standardization, Foden doubled down on individuality. The result was not just a truck, but a partnership between builder and driver, one that would be remembered long after the last cab left the line. By the late 1960s, the British roads that once belonged to Foden's sturdy custom-built trucks began to fill with unfamiliar names. Volvo, Mercedes-Benz and Scania rolled in from the continent, bringing with them a new style of competition. These European giants operated on a different scale, mass-producing trucks in numbers that dwarfed anything possible in Sandbach. Their factory lines ran longer, their dealer networks stretched across borders, and their parts supply chains were tuned for efficiency that squeezed every penny. Foden, for all its engineering pride, found itself boxed in. The company's strength had always been its ability to tailor trucks to the specific needs of British hauliers, but this approach required skilled labour and low-volume production. The economics of the market were shifting. Large fleet operators, once loyal to the Foden badge, now faced pressure to cut costs and standardise their fleets. European rivals could offer attractive deals, bulk discounts, comprehensive service contracts, and the reassurance of a pan-European support network. The numbers told a hard truth. Foden's new plant, opened in the early 1970s, was designed to produce 6,000 trucks a year. But as the market splintered and foreign brands took hold, those volumes proved impossible to reach. Each truck that left Sandbach carried not just the weight of its cargo, but the burden of overheads that grew heavier with every lost order. The company's legendary flexibility became a double-edged sword. What once set Foden apart now left it exposed to the relentless logic of scale. In the boardrooms and on the factory floor, there was a growing sense that the ground was shifting beneath their feet. Receivership arrived at Sandbach in December 1974, not with the sudden clang of factory gates, but as a slow, grinding uncertainty that seeped into every corner of the town. The new plant, built for a future that never came, stood half idle while order books shrank and creditors circled. Foden's workforce, once 3,000 strong, watched as redundancy notices appeared on the same walls that had once posted overtime lists. The company's fate was no longer in its own hands. When Packard stepped in with an offer in 1980, it was described as a lifeline. But for many in Sandbach, it felt more like a stay of execution. The American giant promised stability and investment, but what followed instead was a gradual thinning of the workforce and a slow erosion of the company's independence. Men who had spent decades at the bench or behind the wheel found themselves surplus to requirements. By the mid-1980s, only a fraction of the original staff remained. The old pride, oil-stained hands and the knowledge that a Foden was built to last gave way to uncertainty and, for some, bitterness. Closure finally came in 2006, when the last Foden left the line. The loss was not just counted in jobs, but in the silencing of a tradition that had shaped Sandbach for generations. The factory gates closed, and with them, a chapter of British industrial history ended, not through failure of skill or spirit, but as a casualty of economic tides too strong for any one community to resist. Today, not a single British truck maker remains wholly independent. As global giants shape the roads ahead, the loss of Foden is more than nostalgia. It's a stark reminder that engineering excellence alone cannot shield a nation's industry from wider forces. What's left is heritage built by skilled hands, and an open question: who will build for Britain in the decades to come? Share your memories in the comments below.